Hey, how's it going today? And we're going to be exploring animation blueprints. This is a fairly advanced topic. I know I've struggled with it as I have with many other things, but I'm moving more into animation at this point, and then I'm going to be moving back into cinematics. But this is what we're going to do today. We're going to create a character, a old UE4 character, and then we're going to change its position from prone to stand and stand to prone. So it's going to look something like this. So we come into play and we go W and we're running here. And if I hit C, the character crouches. Let go of C, he's up. And then if I hit P, the character gets into a prone or laying position, and then I let up, hit P again, and then he gets up. And that's basically all we're going to be doing. But the great thing about this is that you'll learn about the basics of animation that should carry over into UE5. Now, there's two things that you got to do for this one. Let me escape out of this. And if we go into Epic Games here, you've got to, for one, you've got to have either Unreal Engine 4.27 or 4.26. I would recommend having the most current version possible, so that'd be 4.27, but you can still do this with 4.26. And then in addition to that, you're going to need the animation starter pack, which if you go into the marketplace, we can search for that here real fast. I think it's free. I want to say I paid for it. Maybe I got ripped off or something. I don't know. Animation starter pack. And what's interesting about this, the animation starter pack, is that if we go into it, here it is right here. Let's see. It says it's compatible with 5.0, but I've had issues with it in 5.0. So I'm going to have to do some research to get it to work in 5.0, but it does work in 4.27. But like I said, the point of this tutorial is to go over some basic concepts with the animation blueprint, concepts that will carry over into UE5. So anyway, I'll be back in just a few minutes and we'll get started. Okay, I'm back and we're going to get started with this. So we're just in the Epic Games launcher. We're under library and we're going to be launching Unreal Engine 4.27.2. You click that arrow and it gives you the variety of engines. So we're just going to go with the most recent engine for UE4, and I'll hit launch. It'll just take a second to start up. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a game, and we'll go next, and this will be a third person, and we'll go next. We do want starter content, and I'm just going to name this and animation 2, 3, I guess, because I've done this a couple times already. It's going to start up again. Okay, so I don't know how many of you remember this one. This is the old, seems very old, doesn't it, by comparison to UE5 now? But if you hit play, it's just the third person player, and I hit the space bar. Notice we got that. This has a lot of hang time on the jump there. That's like the flying ninja. Nobody can really jump like that. That's a great. So everything's great. We're in UE4, the last version made, the last build, and everything seems to be working fine. But what we want to use is the animation starter pack, and the reason why is, number one, it's free, and number two is it has a bunch of animations that we can use for all other kinds of things, and number three is everything we create in here, like montages or character animations or whatever, we can port those to UE5 and put them into the new mannequin or even into MetaHuman. So with this project, I'm going to hit escape. You can think of it as a way of saving things that we'll create with the animation starter pack. So to get the animation starter pack, we're going to go into here and we're going to go into the library, and I'm assuming you've downloaded it already. It's free. And we'll simply click add to project, and we'll go animation 23, and we'll just go add to project. It just takes a second to load up, and that's done. And now if we go back in there, it's in here. If we go to content, we can see it Animation Starter Pack, or ASP for short. But nothing's changed. Our character is still there. So let's get started with this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to delete this from our level. So click on the third person character and delete him. And then what we're going to do is go into content on the content level, third person blueprints. On third person game mode, we'll come in here, and where it says default pawn class, we're going to switch that from third person character to our UE4 ASP animation starter pack character. And that's all we have to do. Now if we hit play, you'll notice now we've got our animation starter pack, our ASP character, but he's got a capsule around him. And look at how different his jump is. His jump's a little, not any, it's not a flying ninja jump, is it? But that's that. So let's get out of, escape, get out of that, and let's go get rid of that capsule. So we'll go into content, we'll go into the animation starter pack, and it's got a ton of animations in here, close to probably 100. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into this one that has a blue underline. It's the UE4. That's the same as the blueprint character. And you'll notice we're getting a warning when we try to compile, and this is interesting. This is because for some reason, I don't know what happened, there was an input action created. Someone created if you had C or a keyboard press, it was supposed to trigger this action. Well, here's the action, but there is no keyboard press associated with this. So somewhere along the way, there was a breakdown, and this became detached from a keyboard press, and that's why we're getting an error. So this is very easy to fix. We just need to associate it with a keyboard press, and we're going to kind of do that. And then we're going to create a new one for our prone, from our stand to prone and prone to stand functionality that we're going to add. So let's go ahead and take care of that real fast. And then while we're here though, let's click on the capsule, and we'll go search under hidden, and we'll hide in game that capsule component so we don't see it. And it doesn't really, we can compile and save just to save those changes. So now if we go into edit and we go into project settings, this is the old way that it used to be done. Might have to close this window. Here's my project. No, that's not my project settings. Let's see. Let me close that. Oh, here we go. They were kind of hidden in there. Okay, so these are our project settings. And if we come to input, we can look here under bindings. If I close that up, see bindings, action mappings. So this is the old way that it used to be done. And then as of Unreal Engine 5.1, they do these enhanced input actions, which are a little bit different, but it's the same basic concept, but they're doing it where I guess they consider it easier to add modifiers and things onto the mappings or whatever. So right now this has a jump. So if we hit spacebar, we're going to get a jump, the character to jump. And then this one resets a VR. If we press R on the keyboard, that resets the VR. But what we're going to do now is create two action mappings. So we'll press that, and we're going to call the first one crouch, exactly the same as that input action that's already there. And then we're going to associate it on it with the keyboard press of C. So this will get rid of that error now. So now we'll have a keyboard press associated with that event over there on the blueprint. And now we're going to create a new one that doesn't exist yet, and this is going to be prone. We'll call this prone, and you can associate it with whatever keyboard event you want. I'm just going to put one so that, because one is close. And that's all we have to do here. So we'll close this. Oh, I don't want to close the whole thing. Sorry about that. We'll just close that tab. Now, if I come down here and I hit play, you'll see there's our animation, our UE4 ASP character. He jumps, and if I hit C, he crouches now. And he even has a blend space, because if I press W and hit C, he's crouching and walking. This is driven off of a blend space. And all these animations, if I hit escape, are in here. So we're going to be creating all of our functionality based on pre-existing animations that are already built in. So I'm not creating any new animations. I'm just kind of compositing existing animations together based on the starter pack. And that's why we have the starter pack, because there's all these motions that we can combine together. We can use the animation singly, or we can create what they call blend spaces, where we do what you just saw, combine walking and crouching together. So there's one other thing I want to show you before we go back into the content browser here and go into our character right here. Now notice up here it looks like it's docked, but it's not. So let's pull this down and dock it there. Okay. Now if we hit compile and save, you notice that error went away because now we have a keyboard press associated with it. So now if you save this project, you can use it for creating all kinds of animation montages and all kinds of things, and then you can port those over to UE5 and into MetaHumans. So you can, whatever we create here, we can actually transfer over into UE5 mannequins and MetaHumans. You can think of this as a way to access all the animations that are available within the animation starter pack. So that's one great thing that come out of all this. So I'll be doing more tutorials about that later. So now at this level, we're going to go into we're here in our, it's a mouthful here, UE4 ASP character. But what we want to do now is we want to create a keyboard function for our prone to make our player lay down and then go from standing to laying down, and from laying down to standing up. So we need to create that. So we're going to create a variable. We're just going to call it prone. And then what we're going to do, we created that axis mapping earlier, that action mapping earlier. So if I right click here and I just go type in prone, you'll see it right there. So this is our keyboard press associated with 1. And then if I click on the variable here and I hit control, I can grab that. And if I hit alt, I can get the set node. So I can get the get node and the set node. And then if I drag off of here, I can look for a not boolean here. Oops, I messed up. A not boolean. Drag off of here and get a not boolean. There. Plug that. Plug this into here. And this is basically creating a toggle switch of stand up, sit down, based on toggling this value as true or false. So it's almost the same as doing this. Okay, and then we're gonna modify this up here, because we don't want this to happen. We don't want him to be moving. He can't be prone and walking at the same time. He can't be laying down and walking at the same time. So we're gonna create a condition here so that doesn't happen. And I'm gonna press B and click. And then I'm going to press control and get the prone node here, the get node. We're going to put that in as a condition. And if when that is false, that he is not prone, then we can go ahead and have him move along. So that takes care of that. And we can compile and save that. So those are just the two things that we did. Here we did that and we did that. Okay. And now we can move along to modifying the blueprint, the animation blueprint. And I don't know if I thoroughly explained it all, but at first, when you first see it, it's kind of intimidating. So to get to if we're here and I click on the mesh, you'll see that all our animations, if you go to animation here under the details panel, you'll see that it's connected to this UE4 ASP Hero T PPP animation blueprint. So there's already an existing animation blueprint, and we're just going to modify it. So we're not creating one from scratch. There's already one here. So where is this? If we go into third person here, it's right over here. So we double click it, and there it is. It docks automatically. And this contains this is where we'll be doing all the rest of our work. So here's the blend space. If you look up here, there's the blend space. BS is for blend space of the crouching and walking functionality. And here's tabs. You can get to the skeleton, the mesh, the animations, the physics, and all that good stuff there. So that is that. There's two ways now to get to the, what I guess the animation state you can call it, or the anim graph. But if you click here, this is it right here. So you can come down here under My Blueprint and go to anim graph locomotion, or you can come up here on the breadcrumb trail and get to this here. And this is really interesting. At first, this just intimidated the hell out of me, but I've come to understand it. It's not scary at all anymore. These are just animation states, and they contain animations. So these are just boxes that contain animations. These are single animations. That's just a jump. This is just standing idle. That's crouching. That's jogging. And these are blend spaces where they're run and jumped, or the combined animations. These little things were always confusing to me, but they're transitional rules, and it's basically governing the logic of what your character is doing and how the animations work together. When this happens, jump happens. When that happens, goes back to idle. Or all the rules controlling when it jumps from one state to another state. So you can almost think of it like almost like the behavior trees in the artificial intelligence. Just like when this happens, then do this. Once that's done, go back to this. So this is just a way to control which animation is running when. That's all this is. And you get to it either by clicking on the breadcrumb trail here, or on the side here, locomotion here on the side, on the anim graph. And here's the anim graph here, showing all that. The locomotion is feeding into the output pose. But we're particularly interested just in this locomotion and the anim graph and all that. So we click into the locomotion. That's another way to get to it. So I guess there's three ways to get through it. Through the breadcrumb trail, over here on the My Blueprints, and then also if you were on the anim graph, you just click on the state machine here. So this is what's called the state machine. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create 3 new states. And I'm not creating these out of nowhere. These are all based on existing animations that are in the starter pack. So all I'm doing is just compositing together animations that are already built for us. And that's why we want the starter pack, because it has all these animations already built for us, and all we have to do is composite them essentially together. But one thing I know that we're going to need, if I come over here on the event graph, the event graph kind of controls the overall logic and flow of everything, kind of behind the scenes wiring, the infrastructure of it all, you could say. And what we want to do is, if I come over here, I want to create a variable again, and it's a prone variable, and you can think of it as kind of an auxiliary to the variable we already created. But we have to create it in here so that our transitional rules have access to it. So otherwise we would just cast it in, but we have to set it here and do it this way, because our transitional rules will need access to that variable. And it's kind of confusing, and at first this was confusing to me. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of get that variable that we have in the blueprint. So we're going to drag off of here and go get prone, this one right here. And then off of this one though, we're going to press Alt and drag and get the set node for it. And this, by putting it in here like this, our animation state will have access to this variable, and that's what we want. Okay, and so I don't think we can compile and save. We can compile and save. Okay, all right, so now we're compiled and saved. We've got that done. So all we have to do now is modify our state machine, and that's really the crux of this whole thing. So let's go into here and do that. So we're going to create 3 states based on pre-existing animations. So I'm going to right click and add a state, and the first one is going to just be prone, where he's just on the ground. The next one is going to be prone to stand. So right click state, and this is going to be prone to stand. And the next one, right click, is going to be the opposite of that, stand to prone, just like that. And these go like this. We're going to organize them like that. If you click in the center, you can move them on the graph here. And so on the outer edge here, if you click and drag, an arrow comes out. So we just click and drag there, click and drag there, click and drag here, and click and drag here. So now all we have to do is we have rules. We have to create the logic behind when does one go to the other. So, but before we do that, these are just empty states right now. So if we need to put the animations inside these boxes. So let's go ahead and double click the first one. And this one is prone to stand. Well, there is an animation there called prone to stand. So we just click this, drag it over here, and hook it up right there like that. And we don't want it to loop. These all seem to loop by default. Then we go back to locomotion, double click stand to prone, and there's also one of those animations, stand to prone right here. Drag that onto the scene like that, drag it in like that, and then there's only one left, and then we come back here, and that's prone, and this is going to be prone idle, and drag that on and hook that up. So like I said, I'm not making these up. These are existing animations within the starter pack already. So now if I were to compile and save, it's not going to, because we don't have our rules defined, our transitional rules. So once we define these rules, that's the last part of this, and we're basically done. It's really the last piece of this whole tutorial. So I appreciate you hanging in there. I hope you're finding this helpful. So it's a lot to take in at first, but once you do this a couple times, I think you'll really start seeing it starts really making sense. But in the beginning, it really seems ridiculous. It really does. I know I struggled with it. So to set these rules, there's just 4 of them. The first one we're going to set is the idle to stand to prone. So we just double click that, and here is this. And all we're going to do for this is we just want to get the status of this variable here. So that's a get, and we simply just plug that one in there like that. Go back to our locomotion, and the next rule is going to be here. When do we go from stand to prone? And that's basically going to be when our time is up. We're going to set a timer on this. So we're going to set for time remaining. It's going to be time remaining, stand to prone ratio, and then if it's less than 1/10 of a second, so we go less than that one, and you can adjust this value later, 0.1, and see what it does. We put that in as our condition there, and we go back, and then the next rule is going to be, let me see here. This is going to be prone to stand. Double click that. And this is going to be the reverse when it's not. So we'll get this, and then we'll get a not boolean here. When we're not that, then you can stand up. And then the very last one, we go back in here, double click here. And this is actually what we could do is go into locomotion, click this one, I believe it is. Let's just copy this, Control C, and go back here. It's our very last one, and Control V, and it's the same thing when the time is up. We just plug that in there. Now we should compile and save and not get any errors. And if we did everything right, it should all work. So I would suggest doing this a couple times, going through this tutorial a couple times until you get the flow of it and it comes natural, and then you understand the logic behind each thing that's been done. So let's go in here and hit play. So there is our character. I'm hitting W, I'm hitting S, this is D, that's E, that's crouch, this is C and W. Now let's hit 1. And lays down, she's shooting. Press 1. And he's up. And he's out. Oops. What happened here? Something happened. So what happened? So obviously there's a mistake there, so let's see if we can figure out what I did wrong. Less than, let's go back to the beginning. Okay, so what it was, what I realized I did wrong was in the, I needed to turn off the loop animation for the stand to prone. That was the problem that I had. So sorry about that little delay on that. So the looping the animation was the problem on that. So check those off. And if you do, it should then work. So hit play, and there we go. So hit 1, goes down, 1, he goes up, he's back again. There we go. So what you can do with all this done now, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day, wrap this up, and then I'll refer back to this tutorial later, and we're going to be doing some more work, taking animations and montages out of this. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.